It's episode 108 of the Improv London podcast. I'm your host, Stuart Moses, and this week's guest is Izzi Suddek. Hello! How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm very well.
I just applauded myself.
Yay! That's what it's all about, the applause.
It is, especially when there's no audience members there.
The listeners of the audience.
Oh yes, of course. I mean, like when you do a show and you get used to like doing those odd shows where no one turns up and you're like, yay, we did great.
Well, you get points for turning up.
Yeah.
And I think we've all done shows where there have been more people in the audience than there have been in the team.
Yes, yeah.
One of my groups is a duo, so that's really indictment of really an indictment of the popularity. It's all stage time.
It is, and character building.
Yes. Cool. So let's talk about Lord of the Game of the Ring of Thrones.
Also known as Lot Got Rot.
Nice. I was thinking, is there going to be a helpful acronym? And it turns out that there is.
There is, yes. So, Lord of the Game of the Ring of Thrones. I joined Hivemind for this show. And I remember doing my first rehearsal with them, and we did a kind of just generic fantasy-based rehearsal and had an amazing time. Actually, remember still that show that we created. It was called Bloop, and it was about these creatures that had gills that could breathe in water, but there was a hidden secret, and they didn't want their fellow teenage friends to know. It was based in a high school. It was so much fun. That is definitely more like low fantasy. So after that, we've been working on creating this high fantasy world, and for me, that's been a great learning actually. Getting used to getting your head in the right place for that rehearsal and for shows, in how they may speak during that time, and how they may interact, the common tropes. You can fall into stereotypical gender roles as well. All these everyday life things that you want to get your head in that mindset for.
So you were saying before we started recording, you're not a huge fantasy fan.
I'm not. It's growing. I wouldn't say I'm not now. I'm just saying I'm not. I haven't been for my lifetime so far. And I guess this has really triggered it. So after that first rehearsal, and once I found out I was in the group, I took time to watch the first two Lord of the Rings.
Oh, right.
And the extended versions are the only ones online, so they're 4 hours long each. And so that became a project for me over the next few weeks. So I remember coming home around 10, 11 at night and watching another hour of it.
God.
It was actually really nice. It was like this escapism where I'd come home and it would be just an hour of escapism instead of putting it all on myself to watch a 4 hour run through at once.
Yes, I can imagine. Well, I just imagine that if you weren't enjoying it, that sounds like the most terrible chore.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
you were enjoying it.
I was. I've really grown to it. I think I've only grown to it because I've also been playing fantasy roles, fantasy characters, and narrative style. That I'm more curious in that world because I didn't have an existing interest in it. So my interest is now, wow, look at this, like for example Gollum is absolutely fascinating to me, and his conflict with the ring. That scene when he's like, my precious, I want the ring, and he's like, no, but I can't. I think that conflict is an amazing relatable human conflict, for mental health. It's so interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm fascinated in terms of character work and acting, and yeah, that's my angle when I watch it.
Cool. So I'm interested, so you auditioned to join Hivemind, knowing it was fantasy, but not really being a fan of the genre?
No, I was invited. So I met a member of Hivemind at a TNL, Thursday Night Lights jam, and I think they're a great way to meet people. I know some people have their qualms about jams and how it's really hard to play people you don't know, or it's really hit and miss with different levels of people you may play with. So sure, maybe only go to them once or twice on a blue moon. but I think it's a great way to meet people. So I met him through that, and we connected on Facebook and spoke through Messenger about improv. I was so addicted to improv at the time. I still am, but I was very chatty about it. So we had this back and forth about improv and acting. I was into stage acting as well. This was only in like January or February. And he invited me to join them for rehearsal 3 times. I couldn't make it.
Oh, wow.
I was doing a play at the time on stage, and I'm sorry, I was also studying this yoga teacher training course. So I had 2 big projects, and I kept missing the rehearsals, and it got to about May time, and I thought, oh, I've probably missed the boat, but I sent them, well wishes, and I was like, I'm, really happy for you guys, and I'd love to see your show. And he invited me one more time, and that was it.
Excellent.
And I was like, yay!
So, they're a group that have grown out of, is it Cambridge?
Yeah, the Cambridge Impronauts. So they, I guess, the members that came to London then set up this group that was still really keen on performing together. I think it was about 5 of them, or 6, and a few trickled out. And so myself and another member of the team called Mungo was added in. So yay!
Can we explore sort of the format of the show? Do you ask for something at the beginning?
Yes, we asked for lots at the beginning, actually. I'll show you the photo after, but in the opening we have a map, and we have the way it's set is we are bards in a tavern, and one member of the team will step forward and say, hello, welcome to the show. This is our tavern. Thank you for coming. Unfortunately, Elazor, or however we refer to our member of the team, Ellie, in her fantasy name, has wiped off the map and used it for the daily specials board. And we're like, oh no, but you've been far and wide and you can help us, can't you? So we ask for them to all shout out their names, and we pick up one of the first names and turn it into a fantasy location.
Right, cool.
So our last show, he heard Adam, and then he was like, oh, that's funny because we live in Twain Adam, and that was our whole kingdom. And then we ask that our capital city is known for something. What's it known for? And this one we got was bees that hold dreams, which was such a good suggestion.
That's amazing.
When I heard it, I was like, oh, of course we're going to take that one. And then he was like, that's true, and it's called Narco Bee. Yes, it is. And he'll talk a bit through it, like how it's known for bees that hold dreams. So we have a lot of kind of platform there already from the map. We have this capital city, then we have a gloomy place where our first scene starts, and this was the Forest of Nightmares. We have a border, and our border was a fence that's only knee-high, wow. Which you just knew like there was going to be so much comedic material there. And we also had another city called Shakespeareos, where everyone spoke an iambic pentameter.
What they do.
Thankfully, I was not in that town, but one of our team members really did a great job at that, so that was really good. It was fun.
Cool, and you're doing narrative?
Yes, sorry, so it's a narrative form. Yeah.
So how does that work?
Oh, so I've been talking about this with a lot of improv friends, and you know how a narrative works, but we kind of leave it quite free in that we've gone through practicing the spinal structure and the Pixar story spine, where you set up world building, you platform what happens in this everyday world, and everything is not like it's not normal. It's probably a freaky fantasy world, but that's normal to the characters that live within it. And then you heighten it and something goes wrong, there's a pivot. Then maybe the protagonist tries to solve what went wrong, but he fails, there's a bit of a lull, and then there's a resolution, and then a final scene of the new world, a new platform. So that is the generic kind of, guide that we have in our minds, but we're very open to it going anywhere. And we do have a structure where our opening scene, we like to do a hook scene. So it's a short 2 to 5 minute scene where something gloomy and gory happens.
Yeah.
It's usually gory, and it doesn't need to be explained. It's not really relationship building or anything. It's something eerie, and it will come up later. So we start with that, then we go into platforming.
Wow, that sounds really exciting. I've not heard of that before.
That seems to go well,
yeah.
Because in fantasy there's always this, rising evil that heightens throughout. And that's where I've found the fantasy genre with narrative to be a little bit more in your head than when I've been speaking to other improv friends. They were saying, you drive your character and the character will drive the scene and that will drive the narrative, which I completely agree with if you just follow your emotions. But with fantasy, I really feel like there is a lot more head work to do when you're on the sidelines. Maybe other people feel like this about some other specific genres. But yeah, I feel like there's a lot to think about, like, what objects do we have? How are they affecting the story? What's the quest? What's the rising evil? What's the smaller and slightly bigger evils?
So you mentioned objects?
Yes. Well, our last show, we had a variety of objects. We had a bag of emeralds that I was given. I was playing the protagonist. And obviously the best objects were the bees. So I was I was in a family that kept bees for years, and I had 500 in a kind of beekeeping cage, and I was going to present them to the king. They were probably the best objects, and that obviously escalated, and it turned out I also had a pet called Borea, who was a giant bee, and someone illustrated this with their hands. I think they meant to be a butterfly or a bird, and I instantly went, oh, look, a giant bee, as you do. In improv, it's just the first thing that comes to your mind, and it worked out quite well. And Borea died, actually, in that show. No. It was really sad. Borea was stepped on. Oh, and then eaten. Like, I think half of him was eaten. And that got an "oh" from the audience.
And that is beautiful. If you can get that sort of reaction from a made-up bee.
Yes!
A giant bee. You know you're doing it right. If you get that, oh no.
I was saying this to the group, like, what show has ever got that reaction from a dead bee? I think he got more of a reaction than the people dying. A few people died. Died.
And that's weird, isn't it? There's a website for films called Does the Dog Die? Which enables you to go and see whether the dog dies in a film before you go and see it. Because, in films, you can kill people and that doesn't matter. But if the dog dies or something like that happens, people are really, distraught. And everything. So,
I think it's risky as well for films to kind of do that sometimes. Some people will be very anti it.
That sounds great. So, do you play... because the objects seem to be an important thing in fantasy. Is this something you discussed in rehearsals, or did it just sort of arise naturally?
Objects we have definitely discussed it. It's not the main priority, so you usually have a quest with an object that will happen. So our previous rehearsal before that was a crown. It was like a crown that it held evil power, and it was stolen from a zombie king, and that awoken him. Is that
that awoken him?
Awoken him.
I mean, that sounds like proper high fantasy. And it awokeneth him.
Right, yes, that's what I was going for. Thank you. But then we kind of fell into this lots of zombie scenes.
Right.
So, like, you say that sounds really fantasy, but then we felt like, we fell into this kind of typical improv scenes filled with zombies that didn't have much character. So fine line there. But yes, objects are important, and it would be good to focus on them a lot more going forward, I think.
It's just sort of trying to unpick what's different about improvising a fantasy story as opposed to improvising a story in another genre, and I was just trying to work out if there were things that were unique to that genre.
Right. Okay. Well, so for my other cast members might have different views, but my view on it has been getting my head out of modern day world and speaking in that tone. Like, there have been scenes where I'm like, I will use the word daddy or something like that, and it's too modern. So it's just getting in that frame of mind of, I've brought the cattle in from the fields, and father or mama, what do you think I should do about the gentleman that lives next door?
Yeah.
I think for me it's the language and getting my head in that world, and it's so useful to watch some scenes or some episodes from Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings to get into that headspace. Which we did yesterday.
Right.
We had a TV marathon as a group. It was lovely.
Oh, right. Brilliant. I'm really interested in that kind of getting into genre and how much sort of genre you put into the improv show. So you said that you watched Lord of the Rings hour by hour. Was there other homework you had to do or you wanted to do?
I did do other homework. It's such a good question. I have a document that I've created. I was just neatening it up as you were arriving, actually. I've just been adding to it over time, and it's a list of medieval food, people. You look so excited.
This is brilliant. But this is sort of, I mean, first of all, I'm a huge fantasy fan, but also I love this sort of thing where we find out the kind of the work that someone's done off stage to support their work on stage. It's that kind of hidden stuff that you might not ordinarily know about. So yes.
Yeah, and I like that. I mean, I've enjoyed in improv learning to lean into what you don't know, but I've also enjoyed learning shit and being able to use it. So this has been so interesting. And did you know animals were trialled? In 1457, there was a pig that was trialled for killing a child.
I did not know that.
Yes. And I don't know why I haven't brought this into a show yet. I'm just going to put an animal on trial one day. It's going to be great.
Yeah, but isn't that amazing when you've got, history like that just seems like fiction and it just seems so rich.
Yes, exactly. I think that's so interesting. And also just coming back to getting my head in that world, just having a list of basic food things that they would have, like cheese, pickles, sponge cake, plum tart, these things. That really adds flavour to the scene. Oh, did you see what I did there?
Yes, it does. Very good.
Flavour.
I mean, I didn't laugh, but I noted it.
Yeah.
I did that with the improvisers when they're watching a show. We're not laughing. We're admiring. We're going, yes, that was correct. Well done. Yes, I noted that. I'm not going to laugh, obviously, but I might nod my head a little bit.
Yeah.
Yes, that was very good. Well done.
Thanks. I seek compliments. There we go.
You may have them. You mentioned earlier gender roles. How have you dealt with that?
So I guess it's against my natural inclination to be like, oh, I'm going to be this weak woman or something. It's actually kind of fun in fantasy because they tend to be like, oh, I'm the weak woman, now I'm going to beat the man. So, for example, we watched the first episode of Game of Thrones yesterday. Apologies, I can't remember the names, but there's a young...
It's going to help prevent spoilers if we don't name anybody.
Yes, that's true. But one of the younger siblings, so they're practicing weaponry, so that's something we actually want to bring more of into our shows.
Stage combat, yeah.
Well, yeah, we've practiced stage combat, but we haven't done scenes where we're just practicing do you see what I mean? We've practiced fighting, but not... We're at home practicing our bow and arrow, skills.
Oh, right, cool.
And that's what they have in the opening episode of Game of Thrones. They're at home in the village with their family, and one of the young sons is practicing with his archery skills, and the sister comes along and hits the bullseye. Her arrow just shoots right past his face.
Yeah.
So that's a great moment of strong female characters.
Yes.
Which I really like.
I mean, I think there's definitely room for it, and even if there wasn't room, there should be room for it. But I think there is, because you've got fairy tales, which is broadly the same sort of milieu, and you have, it's not like you're doing something strictly historical,
right,
where you're trying to recreate history with the role of women.
Exactly. Yes, it doesn't feel rigid at all. We're not trying to recreate anything, I guess, and that's what's great about the title. We're not saying this is a Lord of the Rings remake or a Game of Thrones remake, but we will aim to hit that fantasy style.
Yeah.
And I guess then the people that really enjoy those shows know that it appeals to them. I'd say that's where the challenge comes as well, because I feel like our show... people should expect and it should achieve to take them out of the real world for the day, and I guess most shows do that, but maybe fantasy even more so. We really want to help them escape and come into a brand new world, and that's why world building is so important. So our platforming scenes are really key to the show.
Yeah. I mean, talked about the importance of secondary creation of the fantasy world, and that people would enter it and then return to the real world having been improved in some way as a result of experiencing the fantasy narrative. I think that was Tolkien. I'm beginning to wish I hadn't started on this now.
Okay, no, it's lovely. Continue.
That's pretty much all I had to say.
That's really interesting. You made me just think of it like a sober drug to some people. This like escapism, and then they come back and they feel more creative or something.
Yeah. I think that's true.
But also, sorry, you made me think about world building. When we were watching Lord of the Rings yesterday, they have, in comparison to Game of Thrones, where Game of Thrones goes straight into plot, Lord of the Rings is all this beautiful world building in the Shire and how the hobbits live, that they really like food, and these little character traits that exist within the world, and the singing and dancing, the festival they have, the fireworks, everything is so well done. And we were saying how it'd be lovely to get a group scene in, like maybe we have a couple platforming scenes, then we just have a group of dwarves just playing chess or something. Like something really enjoyable to watch, a little bit like a game scene in the Herald. That would be really fun.
I love group scenes. I think they're difficult, but when they're done well, it's the most magical thing. It's something I'm really interested in exploring more, finding out how you manage to have so many people on stage without people talking over each other. Because, two people scenes are fine, but once you've seen a bit of improv, it's like, oh, okay. Let me see something with a group that looks theatrical. It just makes the world come alive a bit more for me.
I agree. And I don't know about you, but I think a good group scene, I'd love to analyse it more, but I think a good group scene is finding that delicate balance. I think each moment one person will lead and then they'll give up that lead and then someone will come forward, and it's finding that. I don't think you could have one leader, because then it turns into a classroom scene of a teacher just telling everyone what to do. It's the delicate, it's the passing of the baton between people with the pulling of the focus and everything. That's I think it's probably just practice. I think but still, it's something I would like to see more of. Yes. I wonder if it's also knowing your teammates. So let's assume there's like a scale of who likes to lead and who likes to lead less. And let's say I put all my teammates on that scale. So I go into a group scene and I'm like, oh, that person who really likes to lead is probably going to be the one to speak first. So maybe you're making all these assumptions on who will go when and where you slot in.
Yes.
I don't know, that just came to me.
Yeah, that's a really interesting theory. I certainly wouldn't want to try a group scene in a jam.
Oh, no. Oh, gosh. Yeah, I was just thinking about group scenes with people that you don't know. It'd be very hard. But I've heard some people do shows with... I've heard of duo shows. I can't remember the name of the person that does it. They invite a guest to join them every single show that they do.
Yeah.
So some people love playing with others that they don't know at all.
But I think it's easier if there's only two of you.
Yes.
Because then you only have one person to listen to. That's why I love being in a duo. You only have one person to listen to. There's more responsibility. You have to do more work, but you only have to listen to one person.
Yes.
And that's a little bit easier than listening to lots of different people at the same time.
And you can figure each other out along the way.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Even if you've not met, but you're focused on that one person. So I'm not saying it's easy, but I think it's simpler in some ways.
I have a dream to get into a duo show, so I'd love to hear more about why you love being in a duo.
It's the relationship between the two people. That's what I find fascinating. It's when you're watching, especially a duo show, you're watching it at two levels. You're watching it at the level of the story and the characters, but you're also watching it as the relationship between the two people.
Yes.
And seeing the two people sometimes mess with each other can also be a delight. I really recommend it.
Yeah.
The nursery who've very kindly given us a place to record tonight, regularly run duo courses, and that's been one of my favourite courses to do.
Really?
Very helpful indeed. Lots of fun.
Ooh.
Yes, you should definitely do it. I would encourage everybody, even if they don't want to spend, just to be in a duo forever.
Sure.
It's really worth exploring, because what you learn doing it as a duo is then transferable if you then go and play with a larger group. So
I completely agree. I just don't want to force it. I feel like I want to let it come naturally, and by it I mean that one improviser where we're just going to click,
right,
and we're going to want to do a similar genre.
Yes.
Where we're into the same thing outside of improv, and then it's just magic.
Well, that's very much what happened with Bryn and I and Dr. Tuprov, because we both love Doctor Who, and so we decided to make a show out of it.
That's lovely.
Hello, Bryn. Cool. Is there anything else we should know about Lot Rot? No, that's not it. Lot
Yep.
Gorot? Lot Gorot? Is it Lot Gorot?
Lot got rot.
Lot got rot. I mean, that's a lot longer than saying Lord of the Game with the Ring of the Thrones, but anyway.
It was enjoyable watching you figure out.
Thank you very much. I've written down Lord of the Game with the Ring of the Thrones, if anyone's wondering how I'm able to remember that, but not Lot Gorot.
I think that's everything. I just think it's a great show, and I think it's definitely up there in the Edinburgh run.
And you're going up to Edinburgh?
We are going up to Edinburgh. We're doing the second half of the Fringe, and it'll be running every day from the 14th to 27th. And we also sold out on our Friday show a few days ago, so
brilliant.
That was really, really good sign.
Yeah, that sounds great. Have you performed at Edinburgh before?
No, it's my first one. First Edinburgh Fringe.
Cool, excellent.
And I will be doing about 27 shows.
So you're in other things apart from Lot Garot?
The group, we're also doing a day show called Playlight Robbery.
Oh, right, tell me about that.
They've run it before last year and possibly years before. The audience can turn up with a flyer from another show, nice. And we have a final 3 that are then voted on, and we recreate that show.
Oh, beautiful.
And I was just talking about it with a member of Hive Mind today, Alex, and he was saying how refreshing it was last year to go and do that separate genre, because you're doing the same genre every day at the Fringe. You just want to kind of get out of it and loosen up a bit, and I think that's what Playlight will give us. These brand new, whatever it may be, if it's future AI or Shakespeare, that's probably one I'm most nervous about is Shakespeare, but yeah, it's a mix of new genres.
Well, that sounds fantastic. I encourage everyone to go along to both shows.
Yeah. Just follow us everywhere.
You're also involved in the creation of an event called We Talk Off Stage with Harry Turnbull.
Yes, that's
Tell me
correct.
About that.
You do your research very well. I'm glad my Facebook is working for such promotion.
Yes, I did tell Izzy that. I had done some research, by which I mean I'd gone to her Facebook page. That is the extent of my... well, sometimes, to be frank, that's more than I do for some guests.
It's great. But, I love it. I am creating that event with Harry. Harry and I have had lots of conversations. We're really good friends through Improv. We've had lots of conversations about conversations. I work for another company that helps get corporates together to break past that small talk. And then Harry and I were chatting about that it's also a big problem in improv. A problem and an enjoyment. So I love meeting up with an improviser, and I could talk improv for 2-3 hours. But also, there are so many improvisers I know, and I don't even know where they live, what they do, their second name. Oh wait, you usually know their second names because of shows. And it's so lovely. I think one of the best things to talk about with improvisers is why they do improv, why they enjoy it, what other arts they enjoy, their thinking behind it.
I mean, I'm very much worried you're going to be putting me out of business by holding this event, but...
Oh, what? Why?
That's what I do on this podcast.
No, but this is more intimate and for people to listen to. We Talk Off Stage is to create friendships, and although I feel like that's what we're doing now, well, of course, Stuart. But I really think it's so fascinating that you have all these creative, funny people come on stage, and I want them to be that off stage as well. I know they are that it's just a shell that we want to help break through that event. and possibly expand. So it doesn't need to just be improv actors. It can be improvised dancers, improvised musicians, everyone that does improv.
So, could you give us a little preview of what the night's going to involve?
Of course. So it's going to have a structure where people will come in and we'll probably have a group game to break the ice, typical improv group game. Maybe a sound ball, maybe, what's that one? Vomiting chicken, dancing dinosaur, what's it called? I always get the name wrong.
Oh, Jonah. Zombie chicken?
Zombie chicken, vomiting dinosaur? Zombie dinosaur, vomiting chicken. Oh, you know.
Yes. Oh, I feel bad. I'm terrible when people turn it back on me and then they ask me a question. I'm like, mutant chicken? It's definitely a chicken in there, if we're thinking of the same thing.
Basically, you start with a sentence, you pass around the same sentence until it turns into a sound where you all look like either a vomiting chicken or, let's say, a mutant dinosaur.
Ah, right, yes.
So we might do an icebreaker like that, a group game, and then we will have kind of prompt questions. And I think we're going to put these on post-it notes on a wall, and people can choose a question. Or we shall give them no choice and give them their questions, because people tend to then look at all the questions and be like, what's the good one? What's the best one? When it's not about the question, it's about you and what you have to say. But we're going to break from partner conversations. We're going to match people up in a different partner each time. We're going to go from that to scene-based, a kind of jam/scenic section, and these scene games will be conversation based.
Brilliant.
So there's an exercise called Cocktail Party. I don't know, have you played it?
I have, but I'm going to pretend for the benefit of the audience that no. Tell me about the cocktail party.
Oh, well, that's funny because I can tell you all about it. There's usually 6 people on stage in pairs, so 2, 2, 2. And they're given a topic each to talk about. So you could have home, pets, and I'm literally going off one that I did in class with Jules. We had home, pets, and war. It was a great contrast. And instead of anyone directing you, you will naturally go from one conversation to another, and you'll hear someone possibly talking about home and how they love coming home to their family. Then boom, pets could start up and be like, gosh, I love coming home to my dog. And they'll have this intimate conversation between them, but on stage. And I wonder if that will be maybe more comfortable for improvisers than the conversations off stage.
Yes. That would be really interesting to find out. I love those scenes where people are just saying exactly what they think about these things. And but it's also interesting the off-stage conversations that you're planning to have, because yes, it's weird. You get to know improvisers because you've played a lot of scenes with them and you sort of know a lot about them, but actually there's lots of things that you don't know about them.
Yeah.
There's kind of huge gaps. So it'd be really interesting to explore that. Sounds like a really interesting event.
Thank you. Yes, I've heard one too many people say they would talk about their teams or people they know that are improvisers, and they've known them for years and they've improvised with them for years, and they're like, but I don't know anything about them off stage.
Yeah.
And it's almost like it's a bit of a trick as well, I think, improv, because you think you just got to know them really well because I was just really vulnerable with them.
Yes.
I just showed them my deepest, darkest thoughts. But what's funny is you don't come off stage and be like, oh, actually that bit was acting and that bit was real.
Yeah.
So you don't really talk about it.
And if you do know the person outside of improv, then it's delightful just to pull that in.
Yes, yeah.
And then just, I think that's fine and I think that's cheating, but if you know someone's really passionate about a subject, you can weave that in, and the look of delight on their face, and it's just like,
Yes.
So that sounds a really good idea for an event.
Thank you. See you there.
I'll see you there, and I plan to come along on the 28th of August at the nursery.
Yes, it's the day after I get back from Edinburgh, so I'll be a walking zombie.
Excellent. Which you have experience of playing, so it'll be a very, it'll be an authentic one. Tell me about combining yoga and improv, because that sounds a really good idea.
Thanks.
Now, this used to be called Yogprov, but it isn't anymore. Why not? Isn't it called that anymore? I like that name.
Me too. I realise to all improvisers that is probably a great name. Sorry if you don't agree, but I think to an improviser, Yogprov is great, even if it sounds like yogurt.
There's no losing here. If it turns out to be about yoga, that's brilliant. If it turns out to be yoga, I'm also on board.
Right.
But, yeah.
But I realise the people I'm appealing to are not improvisers. Improvisers can definitely come, but it's for people who haven't been exposed to improv yet, and possibly even yoga. So it needs to be a lot clearer in the name, which I'm still trialing. So I went through this phase where I was like, oh my god, what's the name? Oh, I need to find a name, otherwise I can't do anything. And now I'm trialing. I do not know what's going on. I'm still trialing, and it may be like that for months. And what it was me passing my yoga teacher training and feeling like I didn't feel like a typical yogi. I didn't feel very serious about yoga in that, how do I put that? I'm passionate about it, but I don't feel very much like this is how yoga should be, and it's my solo practice and I should do it alone. So this comes from a place of I love improv and being playful. I love learning with others. I love doing activities with others. I'm not a very solo learner. I've become more so as I've gotten a bit older in my wise old years. But I really love sharing activities with people. So what it is people doing partner yoga together, so they can be back to back or face to face. I use a bit of eye contact, do a meditation and then eye contact, and then playful poses together, and then we'll be doing a pose as a group, and then I might bring in a sound ball that we pass a sound around the circle whilst we're holding a pose. And then I've also completely segmented it where we do partner yoga, it's really relaxing and calm, and then improv games, it's fun and playful.
That sounds brilliant.
So it's all trialling, and I'm also bringing conversations into it as well.
Fantastic.
For a separate session.
And if people want to come along and do some...
They can currently find my Facebook page, which is called Play by Izzi, and that is I-Z-Z-I.
Brilliant. That sounds. I love it when you can take improv and then, use it with another discipline, because the skills and the knowledge are so transferable, and it's just really interesting when you can combine it with something else and see what comes out of that as a result. So
I agree. I want to combine it with another thing as well, which is very much on the lines of what we've spoken about. I have a lot of friends that do social coaching. I don't know if you've heard of this.
No, I haven't. No.
So it's if people want to build up their confidence in talking to strangers or friends. It's a social skill. My friends are one-to-one coaches, and they take people out onto the street and do a variety of activities to approach strangers and build that confidence, and break past that voice that says, it may say anything, no, I'm not good enough, I don't have anything interesting to say, oh my gosh, I'm disturbing them and ruining their day. It's breaking past all those tiny voices and instead being like, I'm really fucking interesting. I'm going to make this person's day. Who is this person? I may find out something about them. We may collaborate. I've done these activities, and someone's told me about one of their favourite musicians. That was really lovely. I've met creatives, and we've shared thoughts on what creativity is in the museums, and I think they're some of the most memorable interactions.
This all sounds amazing, but
Oh yes. You're going to ask how improv goes with it.
No, although that's a much better question than what I was going to say. Oh, I should have just yes-ended you. Oh, after all this improv training.
It's okay.
You're approaching strangers and starting conversations with them.
Yes.
Wow. How does that work? How does that go down?
How does it go down?
Just at the bus stop and stuff.
It can be in any environment. Usually you're right, so when you share an environment with someone, that's when it's less threatening.
Right,
so
okay.
On like a kind of survival perspective, like when we were in the wild, you would know someone's not planning to kill you if you shared a space for like a minute or so. Your brain would agree on that, I guess, decide that. So yes, bus stops, museums, we practice a lot along the South Bank, maybe like looking at the show. They have the Udderbelly Festival there, so there's a really fun place. Anywhere, and you can go absolutely anywhere.
I think it sounds great, and I know it's a south of England, London kind of thing. I know in the north people are talking to each other all the time.
Right?
What's going on with that?
I wouldn't be very interesting up there. They'd be like, yeah, so? What are social skills? I know what they are.
So how does this relate to improv?
So, my friends who are social coaches, they use a lot of therapy-based techniques to help people mentally approach strangers, and it's a self-belief thing, so they help them a lot with that. And I would like to help that way, but I'd also love to help by basically doing an improv game with someone just before they're about to talk to a stranger. Okay. Not every time, but knowing when to use it, because I think the power of that powerful feeling after you do an improv game, especially for some of the first times, it just, for me, it really affected my confidence, and I've heard that a lot from a lot of people. Yeah. So I'd love to use that to show someone how creative they can be, how interesting they are, how funny they are, and how they can take initiative. I think improv teaches you to take initiative. Yeah.
Brilliant. How did you get started with improv?
I went to a Burn festival. Have you heard of Burning Man?
I have, but let's pretend that I haven't for the benefit of the podcast.
It's a festival that's all about self-expression, and they have 10 core principles. They could have 11, or I don't know if I'm on point with this. The principles are based around self-reliance, so you bring all your food, all your drink, everything you need for that festival, how illegal it may be, or whatever you need, you bring it all by yourself, or in your group, or your camping gear, so that's self-reliance. And then they're big on gifting. One of the principles is gifting, so you bring some stuff to gift. You can contribute, so it's also co-creation is one of the principles. So when you go to the festival, you can host a workshop, you can perform, you can host a kind of food event where you share out loads of food. So as you can tell, this is a really safe environment for new experiences. And I went to a smaller version of that. I didn't go all the way to America. I went to a Spanish Burn Festival, and I was having this wonderful day, and this kind of independent moment where my group was like, we're all going to the lake, we're going to go for a walk. They were like, please come. They were kind of pushing for me to come, and I was like, you know what, I don't feel like it. I'm going to stay and explore. And this place is like an adult playground. There is a workshop on every hour, and each hour there's not just one, there's like 5 or 6. Anything you can think of: circus skills, acrobatics, writing workshops, arts and crafts, things you wouldn't even imagine people would be able to bring into the desert is in the desert. And I fell into an improv workshop.
Wow.
By accident. So I was on the roof, and I was too tired to get down, along with 2 other people. And so I bargained with the organiser. I said, look, we can be really supportive, we can be a really supportive audience for you, if you just let us stay. And she was like, sure, and you could come on for some scenes. And she egged us on to come on as extras, and I did, and it planted this seed. And I came back to London, and I was like, where are the improv schools at?
That's brilliant. I'm going to say that's the best improv origin story I've heard. It probably is.
Ooh, really?
That's good.
I had to have a bit of a push as well when I got back. I met a friend of a friend who said they were doing courses at Hoopla. So that was the first place that was mentioned to me. Then I started seeing shows there, and this girl called Amy, I've only seen her once since then, and I thanked her for this. I was buying a ticket, and I was like, gosh, I really want to do improv. And she looked at me and she went, just fucking do it. She said, go home tonight and book the course. She looked me dead in the eye when she said that, and I did.
Excellent.
I think tough love works.
Well, you put a desire out there, and the universe. Oh, sorry, it's all right. Mm-hmm. You put a desire out there, and then the audience / universe gave you an immediate reply. Normally, it takes a little bit longer for that to happen, but that was
instant.
Cool. That's fantastic. And how has improv changed your life?
Oh gosh. Improv has been part of a big mental health journey for me. So just under a year ago, I went through this kind of realization that I had depression, and it was a strong self-belief. It was a strong beliefs that I had that I wasn't good enough. I would never call myself creative. Didn't think I was interesting. You get these feelings. Depression comes with feelings of guilt and anxiety. Usually it's the mix of the two. Some people may disagree with this theory, but usually it's the mix of guilt and anxiety that causes it. That was what it was for me. And as I've mentioned previously, improv made me feel like these normal things that happen in my life are interesting and funny to other people because we're all different. So it's just fascinating to see that. And it was great to approach improv with no expectations. So I originally joined to combat my fear of the stage for singing, because I started singing years ago and then dropped it for various reasons. But I'd never had any expectations to act. I'd never once said to a family member, I want to be an actress. Definitely said that about singing. And I'd never imagined it. So it was this really free field that I could approach with very little judgment. But I definitely had my moments. And I had a very good friend of mine who once, I nearly didn't go to a class. It was one of my first classes. I was just laying in bed. I just didn't want to leave the house. And he cycled me all the way to that class.
Wow.
And it really changed everything.
Yeah, there's something to be said for just, you get points for turning up. You get points for sort of booking your first class, but then just turning up. I mean, that's so, Steve Rowe talks about this. I've talked about this on the podcast, just getting through that door the first time.
Yeah.
It's such a barrier, because you think, oh, am I going to have to be really funny? Should I be preparing some funny things to say? Which, of course, is the exact opposite. But, of course, until you've done your class, you don't really know that for certain.
I agree. And it feels so I remember feeling so vulnerable walking through that door and wondering what will come up in a scene and what will people think of me. And sure, I still get smatterings of that now, but the self-belief's a lot stronger, definitely. But I will always be able to relate to how people feel afraid of the stage. And it's really made me believe anyone can be creative, anyone can be funny. Maybe other people disagree. I feel so strongly about this, and I don't want anyone to ever feel like there are types of people that are creative and there are types that aren't.
I agree, 100% agree. So, what is the best or worst note that you've ever been given, and did you take it? I think I'll talk about two notes. So I got one in an audition recently from Jules, which was Be Specific, and that just happened instantly. It was great because in the audition, a lot of people were given notes halfway through, and it was quite comical in that we took them very seriously. So one person was given the note to sort of come on with nothing. So he very obviously just came on and did nothing. Or someone else's was literally do nothing, be a bad improviser. And so he didn't speak. And it was just really funny how extreme we all took it. And I took my Be Specific very literally. We had a dog and I gave her like a full name. It was like, this is Ellie McGruffins. And she is 4 months old and 4 months and 3 days old. And I got her I named the pet store. I can't remember what I named it. I was so literal. And we all knew it was so over the top, but it was great. It was a great learning point. Even if it's over the top, though, that's a great character choice.
Yeah.
I mean, you can take these things literally and, take them to a ridiculous length, but that is a lovely thing to take to a ridiculous length. So.
Yeah. It was very enjoyable. A hard one, I guess, to keep going. Like, gosh, I have to name everything, but if you're playful with it, then...
But that's the fun thing. It's like when you're playing 8 things, isn't it? It's like once you've got through the first few things, it's that point where you're having to reach and just grab for something. That's what's so delightful. I
agree. Another note I've been given recently, I'd like your thoughts on this. It's happened twice this week, so I thought, oh my gosh, what does this mean? So they were actually good. They were meant to come across as compliments, and I've taken them as improvement points. So one of my group members said, when you look at a scene and you look at what's missing, and you will do whatever that scene needs, and that's very chivalrous. And then another person came over for breakfast and she said, yeah, you're like a people pleaser kind of improviser. And she also meant that in a good way of you really want to make people happy in the scene. And I think that's lovely, but a part of me was like, why do I just not go into a scene and be like, this is my scene, I'm going to lead it, and I'm going to be mischievous about it and take action. So that was my thought on it, and these compliments.
That's really interesting, and I think that's great. Your ability to see what the scene needs and to supply that is great, and that's a great team spirit. So that sounds you'd be a great person to play with. Have you heard of the pirate robot ninja?
Yes, yeah.
So it sounds like are you doing this in a sort of a ninja-like way? You're seeing what the scene needs and supplying it, and are they sort of saying you need to be a pirate where you just come in and just mess stuff up?
I guess so. It's interesting that you use that theory, though, because I originally felt like I was a pirate-type improviser at the beginning.
Right.
And I just thought it was really messy for me, just coming in and saying any random thing. And I definitely fall into it sometimes, where I just I create something random, and it just feels like I'm being messy with it. So it's interesting that, maybe it is me trying to be more logical and forward-thinking. And the downside is I've lost that taking action.
I think you go through phases as an improviser. When you're starting, maybe some people are more piratical, and they'll just go in there and they'll just do anything. And then I think maybe as you kind of mature on your journey, you become more aware of what a scene needs. But maybe you lose a little bit of that sort of spontaneity and that creativity.
Right.
So maybe that's something to explore a bit more. And I think you'll do it in a different way because you've progressed and you've gone through the ability to see what a scene needs. Your being a pirate won't be quite the same as it was when you just started.
Yeah.
That would be my thought.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll give it a go. I think I enjoy playing in rehearsals and maybe thinking more pirate-like, and then maybe thinking more ninja-like in another rehearsal and playing with what different things come out that way. Yeah,
that sounds a brilliant idea.
But it just frustrated me. I was like, what? I can't just play improv and please everyone else. What about me?
Yes.
It just reminded me a bit of life. You know, a lot of us tend to fall into that people-pleaser kind of behaviour. Well, for me anyway, and worrying about, is everyone else happy? And I'm very much like an organiser, and I want to make sure everyone's okay. But, I also want to make sure I'm okay. So
yes,
I should do that in scenes too.
Yes. I think we've all learned something today.
We have.
Are you somebody that reads a lot of improv books? Do you find that helpful in the way you learn to improvise?
So I'm sure I've heard of so many wonderful books, and I'm not a big reader, to be honest. As I said, I learn through people and conversation, but also podcasts as of late. But before I go into that, there is...
Do feel free to recommend some of my rivals if you wish to do that.
There is one book I have that Harry bought for me, who we spoke about earlier, and it's by Jill Bernard, The Little Book of Improv.
Little cute book of improv.
Yes, it's so wonderful.
Yeah, that is fantastic, yes.
The drawing she has in it, the playfulness, and it's great for someone like me that doesn't like to read a really big book. And she's like, boom, I put it in a tiny book. Thank you, Jill, this is perfect.
Yes, no, it's a fantastic book, and as you say, yes, it's so concise. But you can reread it. It's fantastic.
Yes, and what's that? She has the beginning bit. She breaks down the things you can use in a scene, and it's like character, voice. She calls it Vascat or...
I think it's Vapopo.
Vapopo, yes. I was completely off.
So I know it's voice, attitude, physicality.
Prop. Next one's prop.
Yeah.
What's the next one? Popo. Oh, then the... what would O be?
Very much. Buy Jill's book. And discover for yourself, because we shouldn't give away all the secrets.
No, of course not.
Yes, that's a great book.
It is.
Tell me about these podcasts that you love.
Oh.
Go
This one I listened to is Improv Yak.
Oh, yes.
I like the beginning. It's like, Improv Yak.
That's Carla Kakowski, isn't it?
Yeah,
yes,
it's like, with Carla Kakowski. It's a great intro.
I mean, the rest of it is also very good. Which is to say,
I don't listen to the rest
really
of
love
it.
the opening music and the bit where she says her name.
Yeah, I just listen to
That's all I need. In many ways, you should just have done one episode because you don't need the rest of them.
That's literally all I need to listen to. I mainly listened to that because a teacher that I had from the IO was on it, called Colleen from IO in Chicago, Colleen Doyle, and she does Dummy with Jason Schatz. So each of them had a podcast, and I listened to both of them, and they were so good. I just wanted to absorb everything. But yeah, that's why I just think podcasts are a great way to absorb things. I listen to them whilst on my bike, which some people may disagree with.
Well, yes.
I see it as very productive because you're travelling and learning.
I think if anybody's listening, I know people are listening, but if someone's listening, to, this long into the podcast, we've probably won them over with the idea of podcasts. I think we're really preaching to the converted here. But do check out Improv Yak if you haven't already checked it out, because it is very good.
It is.
What could somebody do when they step on stage with you? Yes, we've been... Izzy's delightfully brought along orange, but I've just been holding one piece in my hand because I'm worried that if I eat it, I don't know how loud an orange is.
Oh, no.
I mean, I think I didn't hear you because you just had some then. I didn't hear you eat that.
I don't think it's a loud fruit. If it was apple, that would have changed everything.
That would, yeah. But I was just really worried that you would be talking and I'd just be going...
Stuart's got an orange skin in his mouth.
Yeah, really unprofessional. But thank you very much for this orange. It's delightful.
Oh,
the one slice I've been eating for the last 50 minutes has been delightful. I've really savoured every bit of this. If someone were to step on stage with you, either as part of a team in which you belong, or in a jam, what could they do to delight you?
It's generally a really strong character choice that I've never seen before.
What have you never seen?
That's true. I'm sure it's not never seen, but it's something that surprises me, or maybe something that surprises me that they usually wouldn't do. It surprises me from their everyday character. So I didn't do this scene with one of my team members, but she did a great one where we were in a world where the town were very proud of their teeth, and your teeth would possibly fall out after the age of 18 if you weren't sort of royal blood and you didn't have money. And she did this great characterization where when she laughed or spoke, she would show her teeth, literally like a horse. Like she would open her lips and just like laugh at this, like ah ha 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 ha. And it was such a great, just one tiny move, and it's hilarious and it surprises me. So yeah, when someone comes on and absolutely like just surprises me like that, I want to follow them.
Yeah.
I feel like they've jumped on a roller coaster and they're like, you want to get on this roller coaster with me? I'm like, yes, I want to go with you.
Cool. What's your signature move? What's classic Suddek? Saves the day, brings down the house every time.
God.
Your go-to move just to crush it.
No one's ever said classic Suddek before. I'm
hoping it's going to catch on.
I'm too humble, Stuart. I don't know what to say.
We've just talked about yourself for nearly an hour. I would dispute the humbleness of your character.
No, I'm too humble, honestly. I think I should. It's been too long.
Well, the podcast.
Yeah, way too long. It's too much about me, I think.
Really?
Yeah, it should be more about you.
You could have said, no more about me. No, don't you turn this around on me. I was going to say, well, you should have said we could stop earlier, but no, try and turn around on me. I'm on every episode. I don't need to talk about me. Or do check out episode 100 if you are interested in more about me. More about me.
My signature move. I've been playing protagonist a lot lately, and trying to be more emotional with my improv. I don't know if I'll call that my signature move, but I'd like it to be. Eventually, is being the emotional, like driving the emotions, but not always being the protagonist, because that's kind of lazy. Because that's an easy one to play in a narrative, I think.
I love being the protagonist.
So fun. So much fun.
Just the rest of the group giving you gifts.
Yeah, give it to me. I'll do whatever you want. Just give me the gifts.
Do you wish to recap the shows and things that you've got coming up?
Yes.
In an effort to encourage the listeners to attend.
So Lord of the Game of the Ring of Thrones is every day from the 14th to, I'm going to say, the 26th of August at 6:30 p.m. at La Belle Angel, and that's in the Edinburgh Fringe. And at 12:50 we have Playwright Robbery. You can bring anything you like to the show and we will recreate it. By anything I mean any flyer. I say that because my friend said that last year they brought a Subway coupon and then they created a Subway show. So you could try that.
As long as it's a flyer.
So yeah, and we'd love to see friendly faces in the crowd.
Cool. And We Talk Off Stage?
We Talk Off Stage is on Tuesday the 28th of August, and it will be at the Nursery Training Centre, and it starts at 7 p.m. And yeah, if you feel like you want to have some more bonding time with your teammates, or you want to get to know some new people in a different way, definitely come. I'm going to have a really good evening getting to know everyone, that's for sure.
Excellent. And whatever Improv will be, how to find out about that?
That will be on my Facebook page, Play by Izzy, or you can just add me on Facebook.
Thank you very much for being a guest on the Improv London podcast.
Yay! Thank you for having me. It was really enjoyable.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
I made this.
That's improv!